If you'd like to be on one of our boards or commissions, you can contact Gail Strope or go to our website, which is jeffcitymo.org. Next, we'll have council committee reports. First, Ms. Carrie Carroll and the admin committee.
Thank you. Administration Committee will meet Wednesday, July 10th. We've pushed it back 1 week because of the July 4th holiday week. On the agenda is the Sidewalk Cafe ordinance for outdoor dining and JCTV metrics and appointments review. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Next, we'll have finance, Sean Schulte.
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance Committee met on Tuesday, June 25th. We reviewed the financial reports and lodging tax report, discussed the audit contract, and our next meeting will be July 23rd, 7:30 a.m. across the hall. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sean. Next, public safety, Mr. Prather.
Our last public safety meeting was canceled, and our next meeting will be held Thursday, August 1st, across the hall.
All right, Bob Scribner is our Public Works and Planning Chair. Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We last met on Thursday, June 20th. We had a forward the approval of yard waste and compost contractor contract to the council for consideration. It'll be on the agenda tonight. We had a vacation of an alleyway at 501 Madison for the school district. We moved to approve. We discussed the Frog Hollow right-of-way agreement with Jeff City Public Schools. We had a presentation from Capital Region Medical Center on their expansion. We discussed a contract proposal by the Brown family for a road extension of Mission Road. Accepted a CDBG grant for program year 2013, which is on the agenda tonight, and discussed parking issues at Lincoln University. And if my phone comes back up here, our next meeting is scheduled for July the 25th on Thursday at 7:30 across the hall.
All right, thank you, Bob. Moving on to liaison reports, I think Larry Henry has one for JCTV.
Thank you, Mayor. Last meeting for JCTV was June 27th, last Thursday. Main topic of discussion was the performance metrics that was previously discussed with them in the previous meeting. I think Lincoln actually has, and that staff actually has some ideas on how they want to see that proceed, so we will be discussing that more in the admin meeting coming up July 10th. So,
okay. Anything else, Larry? Thank you.
Next meeting will be next meeting will be July 25th at 2 p.m.
All right, Bob.
Haste makes waste. I looked at the calendar wrong. Our next meeting is July the 18th, which is the week before the 25th. July 18th at 7:30 across the hall.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, no appointments, no presentations. Underneath number 12, I show that on Bill 2013-35, there's a Dan Brake, correct? If you could come forward, please. You have 5 minutes. You're here to talk about, I think, the compost contract.
Sure.
For the record, just state your name and address, if you would, please.
Dan Brake, 706 Copes Court, and I appreciate the opportunity. Just wanted to give you guys a little background. I represent Brake Brothers Tree Care and Green Waste Recycling. We've been in business over 5 years now. My brother and I started the business. In that time, we've worked very hard and managed to grow the company from 3 to approximately 20 employees. And we specialize in tree care, land clearing, mulch manufacturing, and municipal yard waste solutions. In the time we've been in business, we've worked for cities and municipalities all over the state, cities such as Sedalia, Herman, Centralia, Cape Girardeau, Berkeley, Warrensburg, Warrenton, Columbia, Jeff City Parks, Independence, and Kirksville. And most of these we worked for repeatedly. 2 years ago, we contracted with the City of Mexico to run their compost and yard waste drop-off site, and recently signed a third-year renewal. As you guys know, in March of this year, my company submitted a bid to the City of Jefferson for their yard waste drop-off and composting site. We were able to present a savings of $215,000 to the city. The recommendation has still gone to the current provider. After reviewing scoring sheets of the committee that made the recommendation, we believe there may be some confusion regarding our proposal. And specifically, one of the things was towards our winter hours, and we just wanted to take a minute to address that. Our company has our proposal. We have every intent of maintaining the current winter hours that the city has been accustomed to the past 3 years. Additionally, we lost several points for experience and reliability. And this we feel is not reasonable, as we have several years of experience providing municipal services and a long list of references that would strongly disagree with our poor score. All we're asking for is that this decision be sent back to the committee to where they can more closely examine it and ensure the city, or the citizens of the city, get the best value for their tax dollar. 1.6 points out of 100. That was all that separated us. We are prepared to meet or exceed the current level of service at a more favorable site for more than a 20% cost savings to the taxpayers.
Are there
Thanks
any
for-
questions by the council? Bob?
There was something that was unclear to me in regard to your winter hours. Had you proposed to do winter hours at the same bid, or would there be an
Yes.
adjustment in the?
No, absolutely not. At that pricing structure that was presented.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Bray?
The winter hours, I read through that package, but it's been like a month ago when I read through it, the whole thing. And then I also saw staff notes and so on and so forth, and I could not find your hours either. Were your hours clearly stated in there?
The summer hours were clearly stated in there, and the winter hours, by my mistake, were omitted.
Okay.
And that was an error. We were doing our best to get everything, all the pieces put together, in time, and
Yeah.
we've been watching for this contract to come up for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
And it came up, and I guess the bid packet got sent to our old address, and so someone in purchasing actually notified us, I want to say about 4 days before this was due. So thankfully, she did, and made a mistake. So
All right.
it was my fault.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Bob?
Were you given an opportunity by staff to correct that mistake?
I received a phone call, and you'll have to forgive me here. It was sometime back in April, I believe, and I was asked about the winter hours, and I responded, yes, the winter hours would remain the same as the current provider.
Okay. Did you make it clear at that time, or at least you feel like you made it clear that the bid wouldn't change?
I felt like I did, but after attending the meeting on the 20th, it was apparent that was not known, not made clear. It did not appear as though the committee had that information. I'm really wishing I had that. When I had that phone call, I had presented it in an email response, so I had some documentation rather than my memory, which is sometimes failing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ralph?
There were two things that I paid close attention to. One we talked about, and the other one was your location.
Mm-hmm.
Do I understand correctly that your proposal was contingent on some zoning changes?
We submitted 2 sites. The one that the committee found more favorable was 311 Veterans, and it is zoned M1, if I'm not mistaken. So it would require, I believe, a special use. And I'm sure several people could correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the case. I think if you have M2 zoning, there's no special use or anything required, but under M1, it is allowed with a special use.
Okay. Those were the two things that concerned me in the proposal.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Brake, thanks for being here today. We'll be taking this up later on in the meeting.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. At this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Next, no bids over 50,000 tonight. Bills introduced. This is a time for us to have a first reading of those. Bill 2013-34.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, changing, amending, and modifying the zoning map of the zoning code of the City of Jefferson by rezoning 9.11 acres from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to PUD Planned Unit Development for land addressed as 3625 Missouri Boulevard, described as part of the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 9, Township 44 North, Range 12 West, Jefferson City, Cole County, Missouri.
And actually, while we're here, Clerk, let's go. Or did you do both? Did you do 35 also, first reading?
Didn't.
Let's just go ahead and do that.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, approving a preliminary PUD plan for property located at 3625 Missouri Boulevard, described as part of the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 9, Township 44 North, Range 12 West, Jefferson City, Cole County, Missouri.
Ms. McMillan.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill 34 is the rezoning of this property at 3625 Missouri Boulevard. You'll see on the screen a portion of the property is already zoned PUD. The proposal is to rezone the rest of that tract that has the C1 label on it to PUD. The second part of the proposal is to propose a PUD plan for this property. The entire site is 11.6 acres. The proposed use is for a car dealership and attendant uses. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this at their June meeting. And included in your packet are a number of documents and basically the entire plan. The access will be from Missouri Boulevard, as shown on the screen. There will be a secondary access off of Hobbs Road in this vicinity. You may recall that 2 other development plans had been proposed in the past, both of which did not come to fruition. In 2005, there was a plan for a mixed-use development consisting of 17,000 square feet of retail space, 34,000 square feet of office space, a drive-through bank, and 88 condos. That was abandoned. In 2008, a proposal for a Holiday Inn hotel was proposed for that site, and that never did come to fruition either. This plan for the automotive dealership is the current plan that's being proposed. The building that's proposed is about 36,000 square feet. They also propose, and it's located back on the southern portion of the lot. Also proposes a detail shop for the use of the dealership only. This shows a little bit better exhibit for the landscaping buffer that's proposed. A substantial buffer yard is proposed along the eastern and southern property lines. The existing trees are planned to remain in place as much as possible in the area that is not being graded. And in addition, a buffer yard of evergreen trees that will be stagger planted along the southern property line and along the eastern property line as well. A traffic impact study was submitted, was actually performed for the original 2 developments, the mixed-use development, and was updated for the hotel development. In a letter from Missouri Department of Transportation, they indicated that all the traffic and transportation improvements that are required have been installed. And you may recall that there were some pretty significant improvements made along Missouri Boulevard in the recent past. So no other improvements are needed. However, during the public hearing, some of the neighbors were concerned about being able to enter from Hobbs Road out onto Missouri Boulevard. And Missouri Department of Transportation does recognize that there is a traffic flow problem on Missouri Boulevard. They have said that they're going to study those, the traffic lights on Truman and Missouri Boulevard to improve the traffic flow, and on Country Club Drive as well. Also included in the plan and the detail are the signage plan, the lighting plan. Lighting was another area of concern. Parking lot lighting is proposed as full cutoff lighting. Basically, that means that the covers over the lights restrain the light from going out too far. They basically shoot the light downward onto the subject. The average illumination levels is proposed at 3-foot candles, which is fairly low. The parking and display lot lighting is going to be turned off after 11 p.m. They will continue to have some security lighting. This is an exhibit of the elevation of the building. Of course, it's all designed to the franchise requirements. And this is another view of the site with the uses on the air photo adjacent to it. I'd like to point out most of these, the display of the automobiles are going to be along the front of the property. This is another elevation showing the relationship of the site to the buffer yards. And there are some more detailed description of what those buffer yards look like at each portion on the site. The public hearing for both the rezoning and the PUD plan is scheduled for the next council meeting, which is Monday, July 15th at 6 p.m. in this chamber. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions by council members? Carlos?
Janice, I do have one question as it relates to the entrance that's going on to Hobbs or coming from Hobbs
Yes.
into the dealership. Is that a required entrance, or because I'm concerned about the congestion of traffic that's going to be coming into there as well?
It's proposed as a secondary, primarily as an exit. The primary entrance will be from Missouri Boulevard, and it's pretty clear that that's how the site will function, primarily with this entrance from Missouri Boulevard.
Is that entrance wide enough for trucks? Because I'm concerned about trucks being able to,
Yes.
with all those cars being able to
Yes.
come into Hobbs and turn to the dealership?
Yes, it will accommodate trucks. Specifically designed to accommodate trucks.
Mr. Brick?
Janice, how long has that been zoned as C1? Or do you have any idea how long that's been? That's all been out there for quite a while.
Yes, I'd have to look back at see if the history shows. I know there was some, back when the hotel was proposed, there was a zoning of the site at that time to C1. I believe that's how, when that occurred.
Can you give me some examples of what would qualify as C1? What kind of range, what can you put in there for C1?
Under C1, banks, retail uses, fast food restaurants, basically a full range of retail type uses. An automobile dealership is one of the things that is not allowed in C1, and that was the reason that the property owner and this applicant came forward with this PUD plan for the automotive dealership specifically as a PUD, because that would limit the use to strictly this use. The neighbors would be informed of what that use would be and would see the plan for that use. So if anything else would be proposed, it would have to start at the beginning and go back through the Planning and Zoning Commission and come back to the council. And so
All right.
that's what this plan is specifically for the automobile dealership.
Okay, thank you.
Janice, how did this come through planning and zoning? How did it?
With the vote?
Yes.
At the Planning and Zoning meeting, we did receive some correspondence. No one spoke in opposition at the meeting. We did receive some correspondence from some property owners. And we did have a neighborhood meeting on June 4th that allowed the neighborhood an opportunity to view the plans and ask questions in advance of the Planning and Zoning meeting. So anyway, in the end, the vote was unanimous to approve this plan.
Bob?
Janice, I'm really not too concerned about traffic because I think we've got, 3 or 4 other dealerships on the boulevard, and I've been in and out a few of them, and I've driven by them a number of times, and I've really never ever seen a situation where there was more than 1 or 2 cars coming and going at a time. But I am concerned about noise and lighting, and so I guess I'd be interested in the width of the buffer. I don't think you mentioned how substantial is the buffer that we're talking about.
It's a little difficult to tell from this particular plan. If I find the cross section. That one. If you look at your cross sections in your plan, I don't know, I have to look at my document here to see if I can review the width. On this side. Okay. It's 87 feet from this corner to the property line. And as I mentioned, as much of the natural tree area is going to remain as possible, but they are going to also install a staggered planting buffer along the property line as well. And of course, it does neck down to a little closer to the adjoining property line on the east side. But it is 30 feet in this vicinity.
Do you know if there will be doors, like garage doors or anything like that on the back of the building?
There are no doors on the back of this building.
So there's very, very unlikely that there would be any noise of auto repair noise or anything like that coming from the mechanics?
No, I would say that the architect took very great care to design the building so that it would be create a quiet environment.
And the parking spaces along the back, do you know, are they intended to be active parking spaces where people are going to be coming and going from them, or would you expect that would be surplus automobiles, maybe cars waiting to be detailed or something like that?
Probably a little bit of a mix. I'm not sure if they would require their employees to park back here, so there may be a little bit of coming and going of employees.
Actually, Janice, one of the developers did tell me that the employees were going to be parking on the back.
So, there will be a little bit of a coming and going from that area, but a car dealer doesn't stay open
But they're
That
very unlikely that there would be new cars parked back there, even for security. That probably
No,
wouldn't be a good idea.
Right.
but-
It's my understanding that the new cars are going to be displayed up at the front part of the lot. There may be some new cars along the driveway here, but that would be the extent of the display.
And do you know, has there been any provision to ensure that there are no paging loudspeakers on the backside of the building?
Yeah.
That would be important, I think, as well.
Yes, that was another topic of discussion, because the neighbors were also concerned about the noise from loudspeakers. And again, they are going to have some speakers, but they're all going to be at the front of the building.
And
so
probably
they're
projecting the sound
oriented out toward the front.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, those were my main concerns, with the lighting and do you have any idea how tall the trees that are there now are? Would they actually, the existing trees that are able to be left, would they be mature enough that they would block the most of the view of the building, or the lighting, ambient light from the building?
In this exhibit, it's a little difficult to see, but you can see the elevation of the building compared to the buffer. Of course, it shows full-grown trees in that vicinity. But the residential units are lower, and the site slopes up from where the condos are up to the site where the dealership.
So
will
there's
be
somewhat
built.
of a natural berm there in
Yeah.
addition to the trees and so
Right.
forth. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And of course, the trees hopefully will grow, but, I think it shows in the plan that they'll be 6 to 8 feet in height, I think, when they're planted.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carlos, go ahead.
Janice, you know if there's going to be required for blasting for this project?
I am not aware of that. The fire department does issue permits for blasting. I don't know if they've been, I'm sure they haven't been contacted, but,
Okay.
if they're-
I would have expected some type of a pre-blast plan by now if that was going to have occurred, so nothing to that has come across our.
Okay.
Okay, any follow-up, Carlos? Carrie?
Thank you. And I wanted to thank city staff for working so closely with the neighbors. And the neighbors have had several meetings, even before it ever came to planning and zoning. The developer's been very cooperative and open, and the communication has just been wonderful between everybody involved. And traffic was a huge concern, traffic, lights, and noise, like you brought up. And I know water drainage is something that also was brought to our attention with all the way this land slopes towards the neighborhood in the back. But it seems like we've really addressed that, and it's evident from no negative comments at planning and zoning and having the neighbors there, and there was some correspondence, but the concerns have been able to be addressed, and things have been very smooth, and we don't typically see that in high-profile zoning areas such as this. So I have to credit the neighbors for really communicating, and the developer and the city staff for all working together very hard on this. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for staff? Bob?
I would say this. I spoke to representative of the Highway Department, or MoDOT, the other day, and I was talking specifically about the traffic concerns. And there are traffic problems on Missouri Boulevard, but they had no concern at all about this development actually creating additional traffic problems, partially because of the time when most people frequent car lots and when they start their day and so on and so forth. So they did say that there are issues that have to be addressed, and they are doing traffic studies and what have you, but there wasn't any concern on their part about this development increasing that problem to any measurable amount. So.
Okay, any other questions by council? Okay, seeing none, we'll have first reading of 2013-36. Janice, thanks for that
Thank you.
presentation.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with All Seasons Landscaping and Construction Incorporated for the operation of a public compost site.
Janice.
Thank you, Mayor. The current contract for the public yard waste and compost site expires in October 31st, exactly. Proposals were recently solicited to operate a site for the next contract period beginning November 1st. Proposals were requested on various options, and the selection committee recommended option 2, which is outlined in your packet. Option 2 was defined, could be described as the option that mirrors the requirements that are in place today. And basically, that would mean there would be no charge to city residential users or to city licensed lawn care businesses, but non-city residents and other businesses would be charged. Responses were received from 2 proposers, Brake Brothers Tree Care and Green Waste Recycling from Columbia, Missouri, and All Seasons Landscaping and Construction of Lowman, Missouri. The committee appointed to review the proposers recommended All Seasons Landscaping and Construction as the contractor and their site at 2417 Southridge Drive, and also recommended option 2. All Seasons scored highly on the proposed method of performance, equivalent to the current level of service, city's role in the operation, experience, and reliability. The contract would run concurrent with the city's fiscal year and is structured as a 1-year initial contract with 4 additional 1-year renewals for a total of 5 years. And the year 1 cost for fiscal year 2014 with service beginning November 1 would be $236,000.
Okay, questions by council? Bob.
Janice, I have several questions, and Mr. Mayor, would it be all right if I just ask I have like 6 or 7 questions.
Sure.
If it's okay. I guess the first one's kind of just a get out of the way question here. We had a 3-year contract before. Why did we go to 5-year?
The contractors have to make substantial investments in the site, and once established, it's really an inconvenience to the public also to relocate. So it was a feeling of the staff that the contract period should be longer.
Okay, and that was part of the original proposal, request for proposal for
Yes.
5 years. Okay. And on the option 2 selection, you said I think you said it was equivalent to the current service.
Yes.
Does the current service have licensed landscaping businesses dumping free now?
If they are licensed as a home occupation, yes.
As a home occupation. So will that
Yes.
increase the number of people that will have the ability to dump?
Potentially.
And the reason I asked that is because I noticed that, I think it was option 1, didn't include businesses dumping. And
Right.
I noticed that it was the same bid for Brake Brothers for option 1 and 2, but there was about a $24,000 difference, I think it was. I think instead of 236, it was 212. And was there any discussion about whether that 212,000 bid might have been better than the 224 for All Seasons?
We did briefly discuss it. I believe one of the goals is to encourage the disposal of yard waste at this facility and not have it wind up in creeks, in storm drains, in ditches, and other locations where we don't want it deposited. So the idea is to encourage the use of this facility by basically all residential users and the lawn care companies as well, because they're basically servicing the yards in Jefferson City.
So how can you be sure if you are allowing licensed landscaping businesses, because they can be licensed in Jefferson City, but doing yard work outside the city? How can you be sure that the city and thus the taxpayers aren't paying for people's lawn service outside the city?
Yeah, I understand that concern. And there could be some requirement for the contractor to require some identification. Of course, it's an easy thing to say what you want done, but actually implementing it and implementing a program to accomplish what you want, it can be a little problematic, but I'm sure there's a way to do that. Right now, there is a little bit of a glitch, I would say, in the system, because you also want property owners, not just residents, to be able to use the facility. You know, owners of property or yard waste generated from property inside the city should legally be able to be deposited at this location. So we want that to happen, but to ensure that only yard waste from the city gets deposited there, it takes a little bit of policing by the contractor.
Okay, and we'll probably talk about that more later, but there was a question raised tonight during Mr. Brake's presentation, and I'd already had this question written down, but would you explain the scoring and how you arrived at the various scores? Maybe I listed the same ones that you listed, the proposed method of performance. Would you explain what that means exactly? The city's role in operation, what operation or role that the city would have in the operation, and why that's important, and then the experience, how you judged one company's experience versus the other, and then the issue of reliability. If you could maybe explain to us how you scored that and how you arrived at your scoring.
Well, there were 5 people on the committee. I can describe how I voted.
I mean, yes, okay.
Okay. The proposed method of performance, we want to ensure that the contractor has the ability to perform the service required, and that hopefully the service would be fairly seamless in that regard. I personally thought that the proposed method of performance, because the winter hours were not mentioned, and I feel that winter hours are important, but I personally scored Brake Brothers with fewer points for that particular item because they did not indicate winter hours in the proposal.
Okay.
On the location of the site, one of the sites proposed by Brake Brothers on Veterans Lane seems to be a reasonable site, I would think. You want a site that's fairly centrally located. That's sometimes hard to find, a site that's fairly centrally located. And the advantage that we currently have on the current one on South Ridge Drive, it's fairly centrally located. And Brake Brothers also had proposed a site that was fairly
now, for those at home that don't know where that is, can you kind of give a little bit of a idea of where that's located?
It's basically in the same quadrant as, here's the map that shows that. Trying to get this down here. Here's Ellis Boulevard and Christie Drive. So it's fairly easy to get to. This is the current site on South Ridge Drive. The Brake Brothers site proposed one on Veterans Lane, so it's fairly close to the current site, just over on the other side of the highway, across Highway 54.
And that's mostly surrounded by commercial property, is that correct?
It is.
Okay.
So there's advantages to either one of those sites. The other site that Brake Brothers proposed was up off of 179. Several staff members thought that this particular site was too close to residential uses and did not particularly favor that site. but neither one of the Brake Brothers sites are currently under their control. They would, I assume they would be leased from the current property owner.
Okay.
And that's why I particularly did not award the full number of points on the other one, the city's role in operation. I personally scored All Seasons higher in that regard. They own this, All Seasons owns this particular site. To move over to another site would require some action by the city through zoning approvals, and then also notification of residents and users of the site that we'd be moving the facility. So that does take a little bit of effort to educate people if you're going to move that facility. So that's why I gave that the Brake Brothers proposal fewer points on that one. And experience and reliability. I agree, Brake Brothers does have some very good experience, and I'm not really familiar with their reliability. We did call the City of Mexico and talk to them about their experience, and they gave a fair evaluation of their experience. Our experience with All Seasons has been very good. If you know any operation like this, you are going to get some complaints. So All Seasons has been very quick to rectify any complaints that have been forthcoming, and we feel that overall our experience has been very good with All Seasons, and their reliability has been excellent. They're open when they say they're going to be open. They have the staff available to service the people that are coming in.
But you didn't receive any feedback that would indicate that Brake Brothers' experience and reliability was necessarily less. You just didn't really get anything that strongly indicated that it. What kind of feedback did you get?
It appeared from the proposal that most of their experience was relatively short-term operations with the cities, that they come in, operate a facility for a while to dispose of yard waste or vegetation, and then there's more short-term contracts.
So rather than operate a fixed site, they come in and dispose of what the city has accumulated, and then come back when they've accumulated more.
Correct.
Or something of that nature.
Yes, that's my understanding. Now, with Mexico, the City of Mexico, they are operating their public compost facility for them at the current time.
Okay. And did you contact Brake Brothers to find out if they had winter hours?
Yes, we did, and we were quite frankly, we were a little surprised at the answer. The answer was, yes, I suppose we could operate winter hours, but the understanding was that they would operate them at an additional cost.
So that was
that was my impression.
Committee's understanding, or
yes.
The committee's impression.
Right.
Okay.
And I guess you could fault both of us for not either asking for a follow-up in writing. They didn't provide a follow-up in writing, so.
Okay. Did you take into account the cost of compost and loading charges? I noticed that the Brake Brothers quoted lower amounts on that. Do you feel like that is just kind of an incidental service and not as important to the overall contract?
Yes.
Okay. And then the last question, as the point's been made, the All Seasons first year cost is $236,000. And Brake Brothers was $195,000. That's about $41,000 difference. For the 5 years, it's $215,000, or maybe it's $43,000 difference. That's about 17.2%. Granted, if you take the winter hours out of that would offset that difference quite a bit. But given the fact that that Brake Brothers has corrected that, do you feel like that the people of Jefferson City are getting their money's worth to pay 17.2% more for that?
Well, I guess
serves.
if I had been more certain that they did intend to operate winter hours, I might have scored it differently. But I was not, after hearing the response, I wasn't certain that they didn't deliberately exclude winter hours.
Thank you for your answers. I know that it's a little uncomfortable to be grilled, but I appreciate your
Thank you.
answers. Thank you.
Drew.
Thank you. If you indulge me just a second, I'd kind of like to answer a couple of those too, because I was on that committee.
Sure.
First, I'd say it was very close. I mean, the total scores. Two folks ended up voting Break Brothers. 3 folks ended up voting all seasons. So it was very close. And on my scorecard, it was a difference of 1.2. I had 91 for Break Brothers, 92.2 for all seasons. But on the cost was set out at 40% essentially, and so that was determined by calculation. So if our criteria are correct, then I think the 5 people picked, the selection committee did think that the value was there, only because that was the assigned percentage of votes. Council's free to disagree if they like. I'll tell you where I came in at. I voted location of site better for Break Brothers, 10-9. I have no problem with all seasons, but I really like the option B location. I voted them the same, and city's role of operations. Neither ask a lot of us to be a part of it every day, and that's one of the things I think we were looking at is how much staff time is put into it. The more staff time is put into it, the less expensive it should be for the citizens. Where I started to differ there is the proposed method of performance, and I gave 25 for Break Brothers and 30 for all seasons. Winter hours were concerned, and I certainly came out of that phone call as well, believing that it certainly wasn't included in the price. Maybe that was wrong, maybe it wasn't. But I don't think it would have been appropriate for us to follow up anymore, frankly, because if we would have asked how much it was going to cost for winter hours, then we've now changed the bid. Should we then go back to all seasons and say, well, they bid $20,000 less, you want to match that? Who knows what they would have said. A couple of things that again, very close. I'm not trying to discredit the Break Brothers bids because it was very close, but just that it comes down to little stuff, and that's what I knocked them down on. Zoning, having to rezone those spots, not owning the site was less favorable. I'll tell you, I drove by the property on I-70 that the Break Brothers had several times. One time I thought it did not look very good. One time I thought they cleaned it up. Which, just for background, they have a site on I-70, maybe 2, I'm not really sure, but one of the things they indicated is if the site got too filled up, they could move it to the site on I-70. So maybe that's not such a concern, but I wouldn't necessarily, again, we're down to small criteria, and I didn't think it looked particularly good from my point of view. Let's see. We did call mobilely, and I think that was the point that Mr. Councilman Scrivener kind of indicated. I think there is a distinction in experience in that, I wrote down mobile, but it was Mexico. Mexico is their only full-time landfill site, so they have not done a site the size of Jefferson City. Does that mean they couldn't? Well, I'm sure they could, but if, again, we're down to degrees and criteria, 2 close bids, so I scored them down a bit for that because they just didn't see the experience that all seasons had. Under the, I might define the proposed method of service a little bit more. I think the question is, how do they intend to run the site, and do we, the selection committee, and ultimately the city council, think that is the best proposal for the citizens of Jefferson? Certainly, then the last point is on those home occupation companies. There was such a big deal in the bidding several years ago that I do think the staff felt like it was important to include those home occupations with a business license in the bid. Now, if the council wants to drop it out, it definitely drops the cost. But it had been such a contentious issue and so widely debated, it was kind of a compromise it came to 3 years ago. Again, what we did 3 years ago doesn't dictate what you all have to do today, but I think from staff we had a perspective that was something that was important several years ago. So I just wanted to take the chance to not make Janice take all the heat, and I'm going to throw Matt under the bus. Matt was in there too, but the 3 of us were the ones that ended up voting for all the seasons. 3. That's right.
We're
again,
keeping
they are
score up
close.
here.
all close. And Terry Stevenson, the purchasing director, and Dave Gromner, who's, I'm not sure what his title is now, but he directly deals with the landfill. They voted for Break Brothers, and for all seasons, we've had a good relationship. I think they've done pretty well. They have had complaints, but they've addressed them, and that's kind of what we're looking for. So I just wanted to toss that out so that council understood at least where my perspective was on it.
Thank you, Drew, and thank you, Janice.
To
Bob.
reply to what you said, one thing you both have mentioned, and I appreciate the idea of experience, but I think we should not overlook the fact that Chris or All Season had no experience when they bid the initial contract, and so from an experience level, even the minimal experience that you've assigned to Break Brothers, that's probably more than All Season had the first year of their contract. And I think they've done a great job. I have no complaints, although I did receive one question about odor in the location, so.
And I would disagree with that at all, of course. Again, as I was saying, just kind of a matter of real small degrees on that.
It's very, very incremental. Thank you.
All righty, Mr. Henry.
And this question is either for Janice or Drew. Considering what we heard earlier, a little earlier, is there any way to go back and review this again, or is this already set? These votes already set, or?
On a procedure point, what is it, Mr. Counselor?
Well, I suppose I would. I think you've heard what we've heard. If you want the committee to go back and review it again, we could. It's probably in the purview of the council at this point to make that call. I guess if Terry were here, she'd probably say you ought to give then All Seasons a chance to clarify any questions they might have had. In fairness, I would. Because I didn't. Once I heard winter hours were what they. Well, I didn't hear that, but hearing it tonight, winter hours are the same they would. That might change a point, but for me, that's still a $500,000 difference. So I don't know about the rest of them. But so the answer is, let me stop being fickle. If you want to send us back to it, we could. I think it's the purview of the council now to make a call.
Carrie.
I guess one thing that I'm struggling with is the price difference, because at the time, that's something we really haven't talked about yet, but all the details that lead up to this, at the time, winter hours were not included, so that made it more, when you look at the per hour, you look at the total cost and the value of those hours. There's kind of a calculation where you can kind of figure out what it would cost to operate sort of per hour, let's say. So without winter hours, or not knowing what the hours are, it's easier for one to be more favorable. But when you all were scoring them, it's a significant difference. So I'm not sure. There's a lot that goes into price, more than just the hours, but the quality and the location and convenience and experience, everything you've touched on. But how do we as a council feel comfortable making a decision when it is fairly substantial? Or is it substantial? I think it is, and I think we'll have a hard time explaining to the public and the taxpayers why we would choose one. I feel like we just need to say, if we are going to go with the committee's recommendation, which was pretty split, but if we are to take the committee's recommendation, which I value and appreciate all the points that came up, so if we're going to do that, how do we explain to ourselves and to the taxpayers that, yes, it's worth it, now knowing the change in winter hours, it's still worth it, because, I'm just not sure the value of those hours and that total I'm trying to justify it. It was easy coming in here tonight to justify it, but knowing the hours, now I'm just want to make sure. See who can explain that. Thanks.
If I understand, it may just be a philosophical debate. If you're looking for something of an answer, I guess from the selection committee's point of view, the Break Brothers won the cost. And so once they won the cost, there was a mathematical formula that, frankly, Terry would tell you, but I don't know how it works. But they won the mathematical formula for cost, so that didn't, the winter hours at the same price didn't change the cost any. It would potentially change method of performance, maybe for Janice, maybe for me, maybe for Matt, I don't know. So it would be close. I think the council has to decide if the additional cost is worth the other services that you receive, and that's a difficult case to make. You know, the committee, we've given you our best judgment, but certainly council may see some things we don't see or what have you. So you have to be satisfied that the proposed method of performance, location of the site, city's role in operation, experience, and reliability overcome that cost.
Mr. Bray.
Janice, I have a couple of questions. In committee, these are two factors that I weighed heavily, and I want to know if I'm considering these appropriately, these two items. One, and I'll stick with the hours since we've talked about the winter hours. When I read through the bid package, I too did not find that winter hours were provided. And the bids are already submitted. And I think it's highly irregular to go back and start reworking and redoing the bids after they're submitted. I don't think that would be appropriate. So the fact is, in my mind, they don't have winter hours. And then the other thing that weighed heavily was that the proposal being discussed required, it identified land locations, but they both required zoning changes. So in my mind, they don't have any land to offer for this project. You know, how do I know? I don't know that zoning changes are going to be made. I don't know if it's appropriate for the land. I don't know if it's going to if it is going to get zoning changes made. I don't know if it's going to take a month or 6 months or a year. So in my mind, they don't have land to offer for this project. So between not having winter hours, and I don't think it's appropriate to go back and start changing contracts or start changing proposals, and I can't assume. I don't think I can assume that the zoning changes are, certain. In fact, I kind of have to assume that that might not happen. And then where are we? Where is the? Am I being too restrictive in my thought process on the winter hours or the zoning issues?
Well, on the winter hours, that was one of my concerns as well, and that's why I gave that proposal fewer points than the current contractor. And I think you're also correct on the zoning. I mean, you have to make assumptions that the zoning would be approved. While we would certainly expedite the application through the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council, that's really all I can do for the zoning. It's ultimately the council's decision to make that change in the zoning.
And really, Janice, I mean, for serving on planning and zoning for a few years before I became mayor, and there was a lot of meetings that I walked in and thought, hands down, this is a done deal. And all of a sudden you have 5 or 10 or 15 neighbors that may not like either side either. So, not to pass judgment, but I kind of see Ralph's point of view and the others as far as location. If you don't have it, it's truly not there until it's passed by planning and zoning in this
Right.
body.
Yeah. From the outward appearances, it does appear like it would be a reasonable site, but until you go through the process, you don't really know.
Don't know till you get there.
Don't know till you get there.
All right. Any other questions or comments on 2013-36? Rick.
I'm not on the committee that heard this, but I trust that they fully vetted it as well as the committee, and to that degree I'm unsatisfied with the proposed proposal that's in front of us, and I agree with Councilman Bray that a bid laid is a bid played, and when it's due, it's done. And I see the only recourse is to rebid. I don't think you can relook at this or vote it in favor of the recommendation, but I just don't think that facts that come evident after the bid is closed is relevant. You gotta make the judgment based on what's in front of you at the time of the close of the bids. Otherwise, it could be a lot of rethinking of bids. But I support Councilman Bray and his conclusions.
Okay, any other questions on 2013-36? Bob?
From a legal standpoint, Drew, the process of zoning, if this were to go before the planning and zoning, and they came back with a negative, they sent it to us with a no recommendation, does the council have the authority to override that?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Okay. I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to clarify that in case that question came up later.
As a question, Drew and Janice, in case that was to happen, who would the sponsor be?
Well, by recent tradition anyway, the representative of planning and zoning has sponsored that, whether or not it has passed. But if that councilman refused to sponsor it, then staff would look to find someone else to sponsor it just to let it go onto the council agenda.
Right. In other words, the representative can't change or stop what planning and zoning has done or tried to do.
Well, I suppose that they could delay it. We think it would be more fair for that councilman to sponsor it.
The whole system is set up to protect that and all the interest. Okay. Any other discussion? Great discussion. Bob, good questions. Janice, Drew, everyone else. It's a lot of tax dollars and good questions to be asking, especially this time of year and in the shape that we're in. Moving on, we'll have first reading of 2013-37.
An ordinance amending Chapter 7, Boards and Commissions of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by renaming the Mid-Missouri Property Assessed Clean Energy Development Board to the Missouri Clean Energy District.
Janice. Oh, sorry, Habit. Drew. Nathan. Third time's the charm.
Thank you.
Been looking over here for an hour.
This originally was started many years ago. This Jefferson City was asked to be sort of the pilot program for what was then called PACE, which is essentially a way for people to use their pay off clean energy improvements through their property taxes. And originally it was thought that would be that there would be several districts created, several of these entities created around the state. Jefferson City was sort of going to pioneer the way and show them how to set one up, and we would be mostly focused on local projects. As it turned out to be quite differently. One of the things is that PACE never reached residentials because of the rules that Sallie Mae and Fannie Mae laid out, that they were not able to put those on their property assessments. And so it's been primarily commercial, but surprisingly, it's been tremendously successful. And our little PACE program from Jefferson City is now essentially operating throughout the entire state. And so as part of that, they would like to change the name of it from PACE to the Missouri Clean Energy District, which they feel, the board that runs this, they feel is a better name. And unfortunately for them to change that, since it's essentially they owe their life existence to Jefferson City, and they exist in our code and nowhere else, they have to get our permission to change their name, which is a long explanation to say this really doesn't do much except where it allows them to change their own name.
Questions? All right, moving on to number 16. This is bills pending. We'll have third reading of Bill 2013-29.
An ordinance amending the code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri pertaining to qualification for door-to-door sales licenses.
Mr. Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The current ordinance says that if you're peddling items door to door, you have to have a license, and you can't obtain that license if it's been 5 years since you committed a crime of a felony or an ordinance to carry out the fitness of the proposed business. Because of an issue that we thought may have come up recently, we decided an amendment would be appropriate to say that if they've served any portion of the probationary term within the 5 years, they would be prohibited from obtaining the license. So in the most extreme circumstance, you might have someone who committed a felony, served 5 years after he committed the crime, was convicted, and then stepped out, came here to get a business license to go door to door. We felt that would be inappropriate. A high degree, we believe we owe the public a high degree of protection given that we're licensing someone to go door to door.
Any questions of staff on 2013-29? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Branch,
Aye.
Bray,
Aye.
Carroll,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Schulte,
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2013-30.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri adopting revised rules and regulations for the Police Personnel Board.
Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are two substantive changes to the rules and regulations of the Police Personnel Board. Both of those are contained within Rule 18. The first basically abbreviates the subsection A and refers to the city code. The wording is the same. Rather than set it out in Rule 18, we simply refer to the city code. The second revision of course, establishes a closed hearing, but allows for an open hearing if the concerned employee chooses to have that open hearing. And that's the extent of the revisions. This was discussed by the Police Personnel Board, and they support these revisions. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Chief? Debate by council. Roll call, please.
Bray,
Aye.
Carroll,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Schulte,
Aye.
Scrivener,
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2013-32.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with JC Industries Incorporated for the Missouri Boulevard Sidewalk Project.
Mr. Matt.
Thank you. As clerk indicated, this is a construction contract with JCI, Jefferson Industries, for the Missouri Boulevard Sidewalk Project. It runs sidewalk from Heisinger Road over to the Coles development. Also have a couple connections to the Greenway Trail. Project's duration is 130 calendar days. We picked that because we wanted this to definitely wrap up before the shopping season gets started in earnest in December. The cost of the contract's $457,000, just over that. And it's an 80-20 grant project through MoDOT, and the city's actual cost share is just over $91,000. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff on 2013-32? Carlos.
Matt, you didn't say, but was JCI the lowest bid?
It was the lowest bid.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Council debate. Roll call, please.
Carroll,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Schulte,
Aye.
Scrivener,
Aye.
Branch,
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have a third reading of 2013-33. Would that be as substituted, Counselor?
Well, we haven't substituted it yet.
Okay. So 2013-33 1.0.
Yeah.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the maintenance of sidewalks on Missouri Boulevard constructed by project numbers STP 3100-520 and STP 3101-504.
Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The original agreement that is before you currently, or that's on the table currently, basically says that on some of these sidewalk programs that Mr. Marash talked about, MoDOT is willing to give us the right-of-way, but asking that we maintain them. In reviewing those contracts, we noted that as you heard Ms. Powell indicate, there was two different projects, the STP 3100 and 3105, or close to there too. 3100 is already done, or 3105. One of the two is already done completely, and so we felt like that shouldn't be included in this agreement. MoDOT Friday sent me a copy of a revised agreement that is just for the current project. And so I guess I'd ask, and Phyllis should have uploaded that to your iPads early this afternoon, so if you would be so kind as to move to substitute the revised contract, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you got.
Mayor, I move that we offer the substitute maintenance agreement as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been first, and it's been there's been a motion and a second to accept the substitute. First, we'll talk about discussion on the substitute. Seeing none, debate. Seeing none, roll call, please. On this, as substituted.
Oh, you have to do a voice vote on the substitute first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then vote on
I was going to do a
final.
roll call on it, but we can do,
Oh,
we can do,
well,
if
whatever
we can
you
do
prefer.
voice, we can.
On the motion, correct.
All of those in favor of substituting, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Now we'll be looking at 2013-33 as substituted. Additional comments, Drew?
Nope.
Bob? Other debate? Roll call, please.
Graham,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Schulte,
Aye.
Scrivener,
Aye.
Branch,
Aye.
Bray,
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next we'll move into resolutions. Resolution 2013-18.
A resolution authorizing the acceptance of HUD Community Development Block Grant Award for program year 2013 and amendment of action plan.
At this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion by staff. Janice?
Thank you, Mayor. This would authorize acceptance of the Department of Housing and Urban Development Community Development Block Grant Funds for program year 2013, which has already started, obviously, since it's July. But the amount that we're receiving is a little bit greater than what we had anticipated, about $5,800 more. We're also proposing to revise our action plan budget for 2013, and that's also included in your packet. And it shows how the funds would be distributed between owner-occupied housing support, neighborhood improvements, public improvements, homeless objectives, and administration. Total amount that we're receiving this year is $233,794.
Any questions of staff? Debate on 2013-33? Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Resolution 2013-18. Roll call, please.
Henry,
Aye.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Schulte,
Aye.
Scrivener,
Aye.
Branch,
Aye.
Bray,
Aye.
Carroll,
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, Resolution 2013-19.
A continuing resolution of the City of Jefferson authorizing the filing of applications with the Federal Transit Administration and operating administration of the United States Department of Transportation for federal transportation assistance authorized by 49 U.S.C. Chapter 53 and any other federal statutes administered by the Federal Transit Administration.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, Matt.
Yeah, just a quick update. This is an update to our Jeff Tran paperwork, and the two-year federal transportation bill passed recently. So in that legislation, the city became a direct recipient, where in the past it was a designated recipient. And this allows our staff to apply electronically to receive the operating and capital funds if they're available from the federal government. And our allocation is $726,000 for our operating funds
Okay.
from the grant.
Any other questions of Matt on 2013-19? Seeing none, council debate. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Schulte,
Aye.
Scrivener,
Aye.
Branch,
Aye.
Bray,
Aye.
Carroll,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Any comments under 20 without having anything under 19? Under new business, anyone to speak tonight under new business? Yes, sir, Ralph.
Under new business, I'd like to take this time, actually, Councilman Henry and I are putting together a Ward 5 meeting, and it is scheduled for July the 20th, Saturday morning, July 20th. And so at this time, I'd like to ask Fifth Ward residents to save the date for July the 20th, and there'll be more information coming for our ward meeting, and it'll be out at McClung Park in the morning, and at that time, we will discuss projects and issues of interest to the Fifth Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. I missed Mr. Steinman. Did you sign up, Mr. Steinman?
I tried to.
Okay. While you're here, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Leonard Steimer, 110 North Lincoln. It has to do with the poles that utility lines are on. by federal standards, since you're taking federal money, you're supposed to keep your trees and your lines at 13.6. I've been a truck driver for years and years and owned a trucking company. I know what the standards are. When I was gone, Amber and UE knocked down my trees, and when they did, they knocked down my MediaCom line down to 12'4". I called everybody I could call except the city council. I should have called Nathan, but I didn't. But the line went across Lincoln Street, which is a pretty major street. About 3,000 cars go through there a day. And last Friday morning, Amber and UE's bucket truck, hit the line and broke it. We called MediaCom. MediaCom says, oh, well, we will be right out. We'll be right out. We called the police department. We have a police report. The line still had impedance of 4 amps still going through it. I have a Baptist church right across the street where the line was going to, with children playing all the time. 4 amps don't sound like a lot, but you know, if you've got wet grass, dew on the grass, and a child grabs a hold of it, he's going to get a good shock. So at 3 o'clock in the afternoon Friday, after being told they would send a service truck out there, and there was no wind damage in the area as far as I know, where they couldn't do it. MediaCom is basically a local output. They told me that my line would be taken care of by the 3rd or 4th of this July. Now they're wanting to send me a bill for July because they said it takes 7 days to cancel the contract. The other factor is we need to go around and see all these lines that are wrapped around the poles that are from MediaCom that are wrapped around the pole, 12, 14, 20 feet of it. The people in the scrap business, they've been cutting them. They've been getting shocked. They're still alive. When they get taken down the line, they just wrap around the pole and they don't never turn it off. And we need to do something about that because somebody's going to end up getting hurt off of it. Because 4 amps don't sound like much, but 4 amps on dew area, when you cut into it, and I'm not the one that did it, but when you cut into it, you get a shock. And we need to straighten MediaCom out. My wife did call Nathan Nicholas Friday afternoon, and he says, well, there's a standards that the state of Missouri did that turned around and said it's on a line pole. Well, if it's on a line pole and it's in the city of Jefferson, the city of Jefferson should turn around and say, hey, look, you maintain it properly then. Thank you. Any questions?
All right, thank you, sir. Coming up. Yes, sir.
I'm not speaking for Jeff Tran.
Okay, first of all, you have to sign up before the meeting.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay. And second of all, I let Mr. Steinman as a professional courtesy, so I'll also let you. You have 3 minutes.
Thanks a lot. This is addressing, if you look back on where Mrs. McMillan on...
I'm sorry, sir. For the record, could you state your name and
Paul
address?
Van Horn,
Thank you.
808 Strasburg Court, which is Councilman Carroll's area and Mr. Graham's 4th Ward. The question, what I'm bringing you to is just a question of clarity under 2013 and 2000 and -35, and that issue was, I know Mr. Scribner brought up the question about Missouri Boulevard and entrance into that, and brought up the question, is there going to be any traffic problems? How many of you have driven up and down Missouri Boulevard when they've loaded and unloaded the cars? Any of you? Well, I drive that pretty steadily, and that does create kind of a problems there. I don't know how that's been approached. Second of all, as far as the drainage, Councilman Carroll, remember about quite a few years ago, probably your first session, when we were putting Wildwood Crossing in and also Coles down in West Point Estates. Remember that? When we got out there and walked in the cold. Is the retention basin that is being there, which is under government regulations with the cattails and everything else, is that enough to accommodate the water flow coming in from Wildwood Crossing? That's just a point of question, of clarity, and probably your staff, Mrs. McMillan, can answer that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Appreciate the time. Okay, moving on. Anything else under new business? Anything under number 22? Carrie?
I do have a comment, and I'm not sure where it falls, pertaining to the landscaping. At the very end, I kind of put my hand up at the end of
Landscaping of-
comments. And
Landscaping of,
landscaping, I'm sorry, compost site. My hand up at
actually,
the
I
end,
tell you what, you
and
can
I
do,
had one
we'll go
more
back to number
comment.
20, you can do it there.
Okay, great, thank you.
So we're back on 20.
Okay, thank you. Something I started to say, and then we went on to the next topic, and I thought, now at the end, I am thinking about it again. I know the comment came up about the zoning in the area, and that makes sense. You know, we'd have to change the zoning, that's not guaranteed. And the reason I just was bringing it up again, and I kind of wanted to mention to Drew something to think about, because if we bid it out that it has to be within city limits, my concern is for us to say at the council level, well, we don't know what the outcome could be of zoning if it needs to be rezoned. Now, did they know at the time they placed their bid? And truly, I guess that's up to the council to decide, do we want to move forward with a site that doesn't currently have the appropriate zoning but could be changed? And I guess the reason I say that is I know last time with the current provider, there was a zoning change. It was in a neighborhood with one exit. There were issues there, but the other person that was bidding against it had a busy street in front of them. So we had hard issues with both sites. But the current site, from what I recall, I thought it was rezoned, and I do remember some neighbor issues. So my concern is to say they don't have a site because it's not zoned that way, which is true, and that's valid, yet we don't want to, that, I guess it just maybe scores higher for the one that does have a zoned correctly site. I don't want it to come out as if, well, the council talked very unfavorably, let's say, because they don't have that, and then that looks unfair to them when our bid says it has to be, let's say, within city limits. So I guess that's a Drew question. Thanks.
Good answer.
You could answer it now, or if you need more time, by all means, take time.
No, I defer to Janice if did they have to rezone or not, but then I want to finish answering the question.
I believe that the site on Veterans Lane would require special use permits.
No, last time I think was the question. The previous, but the last time this came up, it was Break Brothers and All Seasons also. Did both of them require rezoning back then, or did All Seasons already have it? I believe that was the
All
question.
Seasons. I don't recall what the Break Brothers site, what site they proposed.
I don't
They were
recall.
north of the river.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, on city property.
And I'd like to point
It's
out,
north of town.
That's like apples and oranges, really. But
and just to finish, your question, I'm really talking to the media here. I hope they understand that you all are just asking questions of the staff as to why we made a decision. Whether or not you agree with what we said, zoning or not, you'll decide next time, and that's okay. But this council is not talking negatively at all about the Break Brothers, nor All Seasons. You just heard what the staff recommendation was, and sometimes, again, as I said, we're talking minor degrees. So just because we think one is better doesn't mean we don't think the other bid is fine. So I don't want the council to take any criticism at all for the recommendation of the staff. You're still in the process of hearing us out.
And that's why this takes 2 meetings and 2 readings and all the above to be flushed out. All right. Thank you, Carrie, for that. Okay, Bob?
My recollection is that site, that current site, was not rezoned because it had a propane gas business in there before, and I think it had whatever the highest commercial
industrial, heavy industrial.
I think it was heavy industrial or
outdoor
something.
use, outdoor operations, outdoor everything.
Yeah, I don't think it had to be rezoned.
No.
Okay, anything else in number 20? Any other new business? Anything under 21? 22? Okay, at this point in time, we may go into closed session to talk about real estate under Missouri State Statute 610.021, subsection 2. Is there a motion on the floor? So moved. Is there a second? Discussion about going into closed session to talk about real estate. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Schulte.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Have a great July 4th.